Hi everyone, I'm Jessica. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be just sharing with you how my sewing machine is set up. That is my acrylic table and the lines that I've drawn on it. I get so many questions on this. I decided to make a video just for this to explain it. So let me show you my setup. Here is my sewing machine. I'm sewing on a Bernina B770 Plus. When I first got the machine, I shared with you the unboxing and everything that came in it. Since then, I've added a few accessories. Let's start with the first one, this clear acrylic table. Now this table comes from sewsteady.com. They make them in a lot of sizes, and what they do is they custom cut the acrylic to fit your machine. So when you order them on their website, you say what sewing machine that you have, and they cut it so that it fits your machine exactly. Some of the feet are hooked on, like this one. You can see there's a screw here, and this foot is a suction cup one. So it has 4 of these screw feet supporting it, and then it has one with this suction cup that you can place exactly where you want it to be the support for the middle. Every single foot has the function to turn and lift. For example, your table that you're sewing on isn't perfectly level. You can use these to level it out. It is cut to fit this exactly. So if I push this off, you can see this is where they cut it to fit the machine that you have. It comes with a ruler along the bottom, which is handy when you're quickly measuring pieces. The other thing that I added are my lines. Now this is the part that I get asked about all the time, so let's talk about them. I drew these myself with a ruler and a Sharpie. This first line is in line with my needle. It's in line exactly with my needle. The second line is 1/4 of an inch over from the first, and the next one is 1/4 inch over from that. So these 3 lines span 1/2 of an inch. There's 1/4 inch between each one. I use these when I'm sewing all the time. I use the middle one as a 1/4 inch guide just for an eyeball as I'm feeding through. Now I always use a 1/4 inch foot when I can, which I have on now, but if I have a really big piece, I can watch it go up this 1/4 inch line till it feeds underneath with my 1/4 inch foot. If I'm making 2 at a time half square triangles or 4 at a time flying geese, I can use these other lines in place of drawing the lines on the pieces. Now I have a video on the 4 at a time flying geese where I talk about that with no lines. I'll link to that below. And I have a half square triangle one as well, so I'll link to that also, so you can see exactly how I do those. Now the only thing I did different this time that I haven't done in the past, because this is the first time I've ever had a clear table, is I drew the lines on the top measuring how I usually measure. So I don't actually need to do this right now, so I'm not going to draw it, but I'm going to show you as I put my needle down, and then I just get my ruler right up against it. Now the only thing is you want to make sure you're making it actually a straight line, that you're not like skewing it like this, because then your seam allowance won't be right. So you need to make sure that you're having a perfectly straight line, and then you're going to draw right next to it. And I used a bigger ruler, so it came all the way back. Once you have the first line, it's easy. You let it dry so you don't smear it at all, and then you move this over, and then you draw your 1/4 inch from the first line. Let that dry, move it over, draw a 1/4 of an inch from the second line. Now this time though, once that was finished, once I had those marked, I flipped it over and I drew the lines on the bottom too. The top lines fade with use. As you're sewing, these get nicked up and they fade completely away. But I thought perhaps, this is the first time, so I don't know, that if I drew the lines on the bottom, now I clean this table, but I can be careful by those lines, that maybe because they're not getting touched all the time, the bottom lines might stay. Now when I'm sitting straight on at my machine, it just looks like a regular set of lines. You can see though, if I move at all, how you can see the bottom lines separate from the top, because there is a thickness here. When you're sitting straight on, you don't see that separation, so there's no issue. So I hope that answered your questions on how I set up those lines and why they are there. If you have any other questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them. Thanks for following along.